What's going on, America? I'm the right-winged angel, Oliver Mack, and in this video, we got to talk about reparations. Now, I know that's always a hot topic for the wokies to talk about because they feel like this country owes black people something for slavery. Well, guess what? I don't feel that way, and so does this civil rights leader. Let's check this out.
You say you don't support reparations. Why not?
Not everybody suffered equally. I mean, when you go into slavery, it's much more complex than white people were the oppressors and black people were the victims. If you dissect it, you will find there were about 3,700 free blacks who owned 12,000 slaves. Blacks.
I bet y'all wokies didn't know that, right? I bet y'all had no idea that there were black people owning other black people in the United States of America. Well, guess what? There were black people owning other black people in Africa. That's the only reason that we had slavery here is because black people in Africa sold other black people who they enslaved to the white people to take them back to the United States of America.
Slaves. The question is, do the descendants of those free blacks who owned black slaves, do they pay? Blacks really benefited more the first 100 years after slavery than we have in the last 50 years. I was born in 1937 during the Depression. Everyone in my small, low-income black community, 98% of the households had a man and a woman raising children. Elderly people could walk safely in that community without fear of being assaulted by their grandchildren.
Ooh! Point after point after point. 100% correct. What he said about mothers and fathers raising children, I think that is the biggest issue in the black community. Every issue that we see in the black community, from the violence to the poverty, all that stuff can be traced back to single parent households. And if you can fix that, then you can fix the majority of the problems in the black community. And what this civil rights leader said, 100% spot on.
Never heard a gunfire during that time. Never heard of a child being shot to death in the crib. But there are 50 children today who have been shot and killed in our cities. If you're talking about remedies, we've got to look beyond saying that every solution has to have a winner and a loser, that blacks can only benefit if whites lose. We have to be defined more than just victims of oppression. When whites were at their worst, blacks were at their best. When we were denied access to hotels, we built our own. We have to communicate to our...
That's facts. There were a lot of thriving black neighborhoods after slavery that a lot of these people don't even talk about. They never mention. The only one that they ever talk about is Black Wall Street because of the bombing. That's the only affluential black neighborhood that they ever talk about. Well, guess what? There were a lot of them. You could be in a black neighborhood back in the 40s and 50s and you wouldn't see crime. You wouldn't see all this crazy stuff that you see now. It's because guess what? The families were intact.
Our people, the history of how they achieved in the face of oppression. But if we continue to sit back and say, all of the challenges that we face in out of wedlock births of violence, that somehow the control of that is in the hands of white America. And therefore, until white people change, there's nothing that we can do. This sets up a terrible situation for this nation. The big crisis facing America is not racial. It is a moral and spiritual freefall that is consuming our children. The highest...
Facts. Man, I wish I knew who this person was. Like, I would love to have a conversation with him, but everything he's saying is 100% facts. I 100% agree with all this stuff because it's not racial. What the left wants to talk about, everything is because of systemic racism, white supremacy, all that BS that they're talking is the only reason that black people are in a position that they're in today is 100% false. It's fake news. It's a false narrative, and I'm tired of hearing about it. I wish that we would actually be honest for once and actually point out the real issues in the black community so they can actually be fixed, so we can see black children growing up to be successful and prosperous in this country. most of them. Now it's like some, but I want to see most black children growing up to be successful and prosperous in this country. And the only way that that's going to happen is if we stop the BS, we stop the false narratives, and tell them the truth, that the way to get out of poverty is to build families correctly. And that means waiting till you fall in love, get married, and then have children. When you're financially stable, emotionally stable, physically stable, and spiritually stable, so you can raise children the right way. But nope, they don't want to talk about that. It's all about racism and white supremacy. Give me a break.
This death rate among black families is homicide. Among Silicon Valley, the highest level of suicide, 6 times the national average. In Appalachia, they're prescription drugs. And so if we are to address this crisis that is causing our children to lack a sense of personal responsibility or value for their own life, they will take their own life or take someone else's. So in order to address that, we must come together and look beyond race and realize America is drowning because it's in a moral and spiritual freefall. None of us should be defined by the worst of what we were in the past, but we should be defined by what we want to become in the future. And that people are motivated to change when you give them a vision of victories that are possible, not constantly reminding them of injuries to be avoided.
I think
Facts, more facts. Thank you so much for saying this stuff. It is all 100% true. And I wish more people would listen to people like him. But of course, people want to live in their echo chamber. They have confirmation bias. They just want to hear things that sound good to them, that sound like something that they want to hear, that sounds like something they already believe, instead of actually thinking outside the box and listening to people that they may not think they agree with, so they can develop a new perspective. Because that's the only way that we're going to change things, is if people listen to others that they may not think they agree with. They probably will find out that they actually do agree with these people.
I think it's not either or, I think it's and. I think we can do both. We cannot ignore the reality of systemic racism and how it's affected the black community. You can't just be like, we need to just focus on our own issues. The violence is happening in the black community, it's the black people's fault, and we need to focus on that. Actually, it's a lot of things. So we can't just separate them and be like, just focus on yourselves, don't worry about racism. It's finding us. It finds us wherever we go. It's not our fault, right? So
let me just say something. She said racism is finding us wherever we go. Well, guess what? I wish racism would find me, because I've been looking for it and I can't find it. If racism would find me, I would be a very happy person, because in the United States of America today, when you're involved in anything that is even perceived as racist, you get a payday. You get people that are bending over backwards to give you money. If somebody says something to me at my job that I say is racist, even though it may not be racist, guess what? I can sue my company and get millions of dollars. So I hope racism would find me, because I've been looking for it and it's nowhere to be found. I don't go outside my house and I find racism every day. I wish I did, but I don't.
what you're saying is we need to focus our issues on ourselves and not wait for this. No, we can do both. We can get reparations and we can work on issues within our community, as we have always been doing. But we need to start removing the barriers that are there that shouldn't be there.
Okay, well, thank you so much for this civil rights activist, but this woke libtard black woman, don't listen to anything she says, because I think she's full of crap. I think she just wants her payday. And that's what reparations, this whole reparations argument is all about. Black people trying to get a payday, black people trying to get a come up off of the trauma that was experienced by their ancestors. And in some of them, it might have not even been their ancestors. There's not, not every black person living in the United States today, their ancestor was a slave. That's just not true. There are some black people living in the United States, their ancestors were actually slave masters. So you can't really say who's deserved reparation and who doesn't. And that's where the reparations argument basically ends. Who's going to say who deserves reparations? We don't know. We'd have to trace every black person in the United States genealogy back to the slave days. And if you find out that your ancestors actually owned slaves too, Do you get half the reparations? How does that work? Do you have to pay half and get half? Nobody knows how that's going to work. So you can't really say how, like, it's just the most ridiculous argument in the world when you talk about reparations. Now, if they would have given slaves reparations back then, I don't think nobody would have any problem with it. But when you're looking at, okay, we deserve reparations almost 200 years later, I don't think we can do that. I don't think there's any possible way for that to be able to happen. So let's just kill the argument, right? For me, I believe reparations was the fact that black people were able to stay in the United States after being free from slavery. If you didn't know, Abraham Lincoln was trying to send black people back after the Emancipation Proclamation, but since he died, I think John Adams, I believe it was the next president after him, he decided to keep black people here. So we could have been sent back to Africa. All of us could have been living in the Congo somewhere and making $2 a day or $2 a week or something like that, working in horrible conditions and living in poverty. We could have been doing that, but we were born in this great nation called the United States of America because they let us stay here. That's the only reparations I need. Also, there were hundreds of thousands of white people who died fighting to free black people. Is that not enough? The fact that we were born here and the fact that hundreds of thousands of white people died so we could be born free here? Is that not enough reparations for you? If it's not, maybe you're just looking for a payday and maybe you just need to go play the lottery and hope for the best. That's all I got to say for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please hit the like button, share, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. All right, I'll catch you guys on the next video. I'm out. Peace.